Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Angora. Today I want to walk with you through my payday routine, like what I do, the template that I use every single month to budget, put down my expenses, put down some of my saving goals and things like that. And I want to do this because I remember just a couple years ago when I was really starting to think about how to budget, how to manage my money better, and I just remember feeling so helpless because there was just like I just felt like there was no resource that was pointing me to exactly what I wanted or exactly where to start. And I also remember asking some of the people in my life, like my friends and stuff, and like they would share things, but it just never felt like this is where you should start. Like I just needed somebody that would point me exactly where to start, give me an example of what to do, and then start from there. It's until I think I was watching like a YouTube video and I saw this girl whom I don't remember, and she had this Excel spreadsheet and she was kind of like sharing what she does every single month. And I just remember having like a light bulb moment where I was just like, oh my gosh, this is where I need to start. Like I literally just need to have a document that can walk through everything and give me a clear picture of what my finances look like, and then from there I can build on that and become better at it. One of the biggest lessons I learned is that what gets measured gets managed. So unless you are tracking and measuring things, you're never going to manage them. But once you start tracking your budget and your expenses, your income, your investments and things like that, you actually become a manager. You start managing things. You start finding creative ways to do things. You start leveraging technology. You start really like proactively thinking about certain things that you can do with your money. And I don't think that can happen unless you have that clear picture. So I feel like budgeting is the beginning of that process of managing. It's the beginning of that process of growing wealth. You cannot grow what you don't know. Start, as you can see on the template, it starts with income, and I like to start with my base salary. The reason why I do that is because I always like I roll this template year over year, and I just like to see how my income has changed, like my base salary has changed year over year. So that's why I have my base salary over there, and then we go into the approximate bi-weekly after tax pay, and then monthly will be double that. So some people get paid once a month, some people get paid bi-weekly. I used to be paid bi-weekly, but now I get paid once a month. So I just put that option over there just in case you need the bi-weekly. And then down I go into expenses, and I start with my fixed expenses. And so I start with rent, utilities, car insurance. My credit card minimum is a fixed expense because I always want to make sure that I pay at least the minimum, but you should ideally pay the whole thing off at the end of the month. And then I also put daycare there just in case, some people have kids, and then subscriptions. So those would be, the examples of the fixed expenses that you would have in a month. If you have like student loan debt and things like that, they would go over there. They're just things that you must pay at the end of the month. And so then you get the subtotal for all your fixed expenses. So that technically means like you have to at least make that much money at the end of the month. Then I go into my variable expenses, which the first one is groceries and food, because you need food, gas and transportation. That would be like your gas to your car, or like if public transportation, the amount of money that you pay for that. And then self-care products, those would be things like soap, lotion, things like that. And then in my budget, I like to put a miscellaneous stock like restaurant or just like once, and that amount I budget for it. So I put a certain amount for those miscellaneous things so that when they come up, I spend that money on them. And usually when I run out of the miscellaneous money, I'm like, okay, we're done for the month. We can't do, anything else because we've run out of budget for that. So I highly advise people to have that miscellaneous amount in their budget, because this is not a zero-based budget, meaning that this is not a budget that everything is accounted for. I used to do that, but it just stressed me out. So I decided to have that miscellaneous amount, and also have some money left so that if anything happens, I can use that money on. It just reduces stress for me. So like I mentioned, like for me, a budget is more of like something that I use to have a clear picture of everything. And then I also use Mint, the app, to track my expenses and my net worth and things like that. So you can use a combination of whatever app you need, plus a template like this that helps you to just have a clear picture of where you stand financially. So from there, I take all the income, the after-tax money, I subtract the fixed expenses and my variable expenses, and then whatever I get, whatever remains is the available income. And so usually I do whatever is available for the month, I multiply that by 12 to have like the ideal amount of money that could be in my savings account. If I chose to just put it in my savings account, that should be the ideal amount of money at the end of the year. And then I would go to the next section, which is my retirement. So my retirement is taken out of my paycheck. So whatever income that I have on here is not does not include my retirement, but I track my retirement over here so that I can just have an idea of what balances I have in my retirement account, in my HSA, and in my Roth IRA. So this is just all for visibility. It's only here so that I know at any point this is the amount of money I have in my HSA this month. This is the amount of money or balance in my 401k plan that I have this month. And I added this feature on here because in the past I just was like, oh, it's done by my employer. I don't really follow that up. I never really changed anything. But when I started budgeting, I started realizing that's my money. That's my those are my investments. I need to have an idea of what's going on. So I really put it on here for visibility, but I always log into my account that my employer provides and make sure that I check the balance every single month and then update this document. Then up next we'll go into my investments. And so on here I would add my stock market investment. So I'll put the balance on the last day of the month, and sometimes I do the 15th day of the month, and sometimes I just update it weekly as I see the balance. So I'll put my investments there. And then I say business stroke YouTube, and this should be a minus, but I put it as a plus because I think of it as an investment. And so all the money that I've spent to buy certain small things for YouTube, like a microphone, tripod, things like that, I have that money budgeted for in my my budget. I've added those. It should be technically an expense, but I want to put it in the investment section so that I just track it, and then someday I will really list it correctly. And then if you have a rental property, that's where I would go. It would go into the investment section and things like that. So for me, charity is truly just the amount of money that I can give to family, friends, charitable organizations, church, things like that. And this money for me, it's a sinking fund, and I always just assume that this is money that will go out someday. When it goes, it will never come back. So even if, let's say, a friend decided that they wanted some money from me and they'll pay me back, usually I would probably take it from the sinking fund or from the charity bucket and give it to them. And if they pay me back, well and good. If they don't pay me back, I always like have it at the back of my mind that this money, I'm only giving out what I am okay losing. I'm only giving out money that I have budgeted for. And I think having that just helped a lot, because it's so easy for people to make their emergencies your emergencies, and then now you end up spending your rent, and they just never get back to you about what they said, and now you're stressed, and then next thing you know, you don't have friends or family because you're just mad at them because of money. So I try to just do what you can do, give what you are okay giving and what you're okay losing. And then I move to the next tab, which really just tracks my short-term goals, my long-term goals, and my emergencies. And by emergencies, they are basically things that are could happen. So for my short-term goals, I have my emergency fund contribution. If you watched my previous video about my monthly reset, I talked about how I'm trying to put $300 into my emergency fund every single month, which is such a big goal. But I want to do that to a point where I have an emergency fund that I feel very comfortable about. So that for me is a short-term goal, and I'm putting here and tracking it because it's a goal of mine. The next goal is to travel, and I'm still thinking about that. I haven't even started contributing to that, but the goal is to be able to travel, and I need to be able to just save for it. And I encourage you, if you think you want to travel next year or something, start putting $50 or $100 into a short-term goal. In that way, when the day comes, you're just like, okay, I can buy a flight, I can buy this, I can do this because I've been saving for this for the first year. That is an easier way to achieve your goals, rather than sitting until next year comes and then you're like, okay, now I have to take this money out of my paycheck from next month or this month to buy a flight. It just stresses you out. So I prefer to just save for it, like plan and start putting away very little money every single month and then doing it eventually. Next bucket is the long-term goals, and for the long-term goals, I have a goal to own a home someday, so that's why that's on there. I also have a goal to own a rental property someday, that's why it's on there. So I left it blank because everybody has a different type of home they want to own or type of rental property they want to own. So I just left that on there so that you can put whatever your long-term goals are, and if these two are your goals, you can put how much money you would want to spend towards those two goals. So I want to say that I understand budgeting is not a fun thing. It's not a fun process to go through. It just feels like it's one of those adult chores that you have to do, and for me, I never really enjoyed it in the beginning. It just was always one of those things that I'm like scared to look at, because I was scared I would actually have a clear picture of my money and where everything goes, and that would just scare me and make me feel stupid or make me feel like a failure. But I think once you start and you're a couple months in, you start realizing that you actually needed it. You realize that it gives you a certain sense of accountability that you just need as an adult. It also just provides a clear picture of what it is that you own, what it is that like how much money you're making, what are your saving goals. It really just opens doors for you to achieve your financial goals. That's how I feel about it. So once you have the base right, it's really easy to start growing. It's really easy for you to start living life without stressing, without like being at a store and being so scared to give out your credit card or your debit card to the cashier because you don't even know how much money there is in your card. Like, I've been there, I've been in that space before where I'm just like, I'm dishing out my card to buy groceries and I'm like, I don't know if it's going to get declined or not, and then I would look behind to be like, you know, is the line long? Like, what type of embarrassment am I going to experience right now? And I don't think that's a really good place to be. So to avoid that, you have to plan. So that's really it for today. Thank you for watching, and come back for another video. And please don't forget to let me know if you are going to use the template in the comment section below. And also let me know your other thoughts about budgeting and how you create your budget, and what are some of the apps that you've been using to really like manage your money. Thanks and bye.